Former Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina is here tonight. I'm looking forward to that interview. We have a lot of news to get to, a lot of information to impart over the course of this hour. But we are going to start with the breaking news out of New York City. What we know at this hour is this. A man with a gun entered an office building in Midtown Manhattan earlier this evening. Once inside, he did open fire. NBC News is reporting that one police officer has been killed in this attack, and at least four civilians are dead as well. The Park Avenue building where the shooting took place has offices for several major companies, including the headquarters of the investment firm Blackstone. Police released this photo of the man they believe to be the gunman entering the building carrying what appears to be an assault-style rifle. MSNBC is now reporting that the man's name is Shane Devin Tamura, T-A-M-U-R-A, 27 years old. Police say the man appears to have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But again, we are also able to report that 5 others appear to have been killed in this incident, including one police officer. Now, the New York Police Department is referring to this suspect as a lone shooter. They are also saying that the scene is now contained. But this is a quickly developing story, and we are learning more with each passing minute. Joining us now is MSNBC investigative correspondent Mark Santia. Mark, I know that this story is developing rapidly. First of all, can you correct if I said anything that's either wrong or now out of date in terms of our latest reporting?
No, Rachel, you're spot on. I mean, there's always, at a time like this, there's always fluid information kind of back and forth, and sort of police are locking everything down right now. They're also going through video right now, Rachel. You mentioned the suspect, the gunman who police say took his own life inside that building, Shane Devin Tamura. We're hearing he is from Las Vegas, Nevada. Multiple sources tell us there is a vehicle in the area with Nevada plates. So, Rachel, what they're trying to do now is to determine if Shane came in that vehicle, in that Nevada vehicle, if there's any connection there. So there's a lot of motion, there's a lot happening on the ground there right now as detectives sort of try to figure out. One law enforcement source told me, look, the scene is locked down, it's done, we don't have the why. So right now they're trying to figure out the motive right now. This all happened earlier this evening in the heart of Midtown. So Park and 52nd, it's an extremely busy area, especially that time and the afternoon rush. We are told the gunman walked into the building and opened fire. He shot the police officer, the officer who was working a paid detail. So Rachel, the officer was in full uniform in the lobby. He shot the officer in the lobby. Then we're also told he shot a civilian on the 31st floor before he took his own life on the 33rd floor. We're expecting a press conference from the NYPD and the New York City mayor around 10 o'clock this evening there on the scene. We're still waiting, but again, there is a lot. You see as a very, very heavy police presence in this area. Rachel, there's always a heavy police presence in the middle of Midtown right there. But obviously, everyone went running to that area. That photo you saw of the suspect, that was disseminated to police officers across the area. They were told to be on the lookout for that person who went into the building with a long gun and then opened fire. We are, again, told that this, according to the NYPD Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, she said the scene is contained and the lone shooter is neutralized. Rachel, initially there was some question. Did this person work alone? Were there others? We now know that NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch says this was a lone shooter who, again, police sources say took his own life on the 33rd floor of that building. Several companies, including BlackRock, housed in that building. And we are told that that person with that long gun seen right there in that photo in his right hand opened fire, shooting the police officer in the lobby, and then shooting a civilian on the 31st floor. We're hearing he shot at least 4 people. We're told critically injured at this point. We're told he shot at least 4 people in that building before taking his own life. Rachel?
Mark, in terms of, as you say, we don't know the motive here. We don't know more about the shooter than we're able to confirm in terms of name and where he's apparently from. But in terms of that building, we've been reporting, we've been discussing the fact that BlackRock is based there. That's a very prominent, high-profile investment firm. But there's a number of other entities in that building. It's not a single, Blackstone. It's a number of other entities that are in that building. It's not just Blackstone there. Do we know anything about the 31st floor, the 33rd floor, the other sites at which the shooter shot at civilians, or indeed the floor in which he took his own life, and what entities are based on those floors of that building?
No, we're working through that right now, Rachel. That's a very good question. There are several companies housed there, including a very large real estate company that is housed in that building. So we're trying to work that down. Is there any significance about those floors? Was he a former employee? That right now, everything's being looked at by the NYPD detectives, and it's all hands on deck right now for detectives. Several were called in. They're all working this case. They're working this case with several different groups of detectives who specialize in sort of different facets of the investigation. So right now, they're trying to see if this suspect, Shane Tamura from Nevada, if he has any connection, Rachel, to any of those companies in that building. And so that is what's being looked at right now. Is there a possible motive? And is there a connection to those companies or to that specific company? Again, the civilian was shot on the 31st floor. Is there a connection there? And that's what detectives are trying to look at right now. I am being told by law enforcement sources they're reviewing surveillance video. Rachel, you know Midtown. There are a lot of surveillance cameras there in the Midtown area as well as that building, and many of them sort of have a working relationship with the NYPD. They'll share those surveillance videos. They get pumped in to the Joint Operation Command at One Police Plaza. So a lot of those videos are readily accessible, and that's what they're looking at right now. Some of those videos, just to try to determine, again, Rachel, the why. Police are telling us this scene is contained, this scene is over, but right now they want to know what motivated this person. Again, it tracks back that he has a Las Vegas address. We are told that there is a vehicle in the area with a Las Vegas, with a Nevada license plate rather, with a Nevada plate that they're looking at right now. They're trying to see if that is connected. And that's right now, Rachel, that's where the investigation is. Again, at least 4 people shot. They're critically injured. We are told 1 police officer shot. We're told the officer has passed away. The officer is dead. And the gunman has taken his own life inside that building on the 33rd floor. But right now, Rachel, the question is, why?
Yeah. Mark Santia, thank you. I know you're going to be on this story throughout the evening. We expect we'll have you back as news develops. MSNBC investigative correspondent Mark Santia, thank you for that. I know we'll be talking with you again. I should mention that we are expecting a press conference at 10 p.m. These things tend to shift around in terms of the timing for a story that is developing the way that this one is. But as of right now, 10 p.m. Eastern, we are expecting a press conference from the authorities who are investigating this matter. Let's turn now to Mark Claxton. He's a retired detective with NYPD. He's now the director of the Black Law Enforcement Alliance. Mr. Claxton, thanks very much for being with us on what is a sad and upsetting night for New Yorkers and for everybody who's watching this news. I appreciate you being with us. I can't hear Mr. Claxton. Is that on my end, or is we?
Thank you for having me on. That's on my end, Rachel.
I appreciate it. What can you tell us about what's happening in terms of how the NYPD would be conducting their investigation at a time like this, after an incident like this? Now that the shooter has been reported dead, they're describing the scene as contained. What do they mean by contained as a sort of term of art in this circumstance? And what do you expect that we'll be able to hear from them when they have this press conference?
Well, what they mean by contained is basically the location that the main location, the central location, is under the control and custody of law enforcement. So that's when they're referencing that it's contained. That's what they're talking about. Just to build on something that Mark Santia was mentioning, they are, as part of the investigation, really accessing their what they call a domain awareness system, which came into play back in December when you had the healthcare CEO shooting. But what it is basically you get data from a lot of internal and external closed circuit television cameras and license plate readers and other sensors that are located throughout New York, as well as access to all the databases. And what that tool specifically can do and is very successful at doing, and I'm sure they're doing it right now as we are speaking, is kind of give you a TikTok and give you a location and follow that person, go backwards in time and follow that person to their origin point, and in hopes of identifying perhaps other individuals who may be involved in this horrific act itself, but more importantly, just trying to get as much information as possible to assist in kind of coming up with the why and the how and the who's as part of this act.
We've had the tragic news confirmed by MSNBC at this point that one of what we believe to be 5 people killed in this attack, again, as we understand it at this stage. One of the people killed appears to be a New York police officer. And Mark Santia described that officer as being in the lobby of this building and in full uniform on what he described as a paid detail. I work in New York City and have seen officers in the building, in the lobby of large midtown and downtown office buildings. How does that work for the NYPD, for the department, for an individual officer to be stationed at a private office building like that? What kind of a detail is that, and what would their responsibilities be?
There are private arrangements that some corporations have with the city of New York, with the police department, to hire police officers in uniform to provide some extra layer of protection for their particular business. So those people, those police officers will receive, in essence, overtime pay, separate and distinct from their normal course of duty. But they are located in various different commercial establishments throughout the city. So it's a side gig. It's a way for police officers to earn some extra funds and extra money. And it's all legitimate and done formally between the NYPD and many of the private entities that are out there. I do want to say that the fact that a police officer has been killed in this particular case makes it exponentially more difficult to investigate and to stay focused as an investigator. It makes it more challenging because you are you have to confront your vulnerabilities, and then you also have to prepare yourself for the conversations that you will have with your family and friends and loved ones about why they live a concerned life based on your occupation. So in addition to the challenges that exist just normally, when you add in this layer of difficulty and vulnerability to professional police officers, it makes investigating the crimes even that much more difficult, which is why we really should remain in awe of the professional job that law enforcement does when you have these complex, complicated, multilateral type of investigations that have to take place.
That's a really good point. Not only police officers mourning a colleague lost tonight, but having to think about the additional tax, effectively, the emotional tax on their own family members and what that means coming home to and what that means for the additional stresses and burdens of the job. Really important point. Mark Claxton, thank you again for your time tonight. Again, as this story develops, I have a feeling we'll be checking back in with you. Really appreciate your time. Let's turn now to NBC News correspondent Stephen Roma, who's at the scene as we continue to cover what we are learning incrementally about this crime, which appears to have cost at least 5 lives tonight in Midtown Manhattan. Steve, thanks very much for being here. What can you tell us in terms of how your reporting has developed in the last hour or two?
Yeah, Rachel, just getting on scene, speaking to people when I first arrived, it was people who were curious, witnesses. But since officers have allowed people to leave the perimeter, I've been able to speak to more people. Just spoke to a woman named Nikesha Lewis, who was having lunch on the plaza right outside that building on Park Avenue. And she recounted to us seeing a man in a backpack running out of the building and making his way to her and the group that she was eating with. And then they noticed that he had a gunshot wound to the back, possibly an exit wound on his torso. As she's watching this unfold, as she also hears more gunfire, sees a glass wall shatter, and then is instructed by police officers who she said arrived there very quickly to move back and get away. And she's right now going and still looking for her friends. They had to drop their stuff and run, and she has not been able to find the people around her. Just one of many stories from people who were living their lives. You know, this is a very busy area. That she says that she has lunch there mostly every day. And she actually spoke to an officer right before he went in, and then she shared with us that she saw the same officer being carried out by other police officers at the NYPD, unsure of his condition, unsure of how he was doing. Of course, having just spoken to him at the time, that is weighing very heavy on her right now. She hopes to get an update about all the people she saw, all of the victims she saw here. She did say that obviously this has changed the way that she's going to view the street, that area, maybe even this city. Because then after that information, then she learned just by checking her phone that there was at the time an active shooter on the loose in Midtown Manhattan. Just she said one shocking thing after another. I'm not sure if we're able to get that. We had that interview. I'm not sure if we're able to get that on air just now. I don't think we actually have been able to turn that around. We'll work on getting that. The urge to stop and help when you're not really sure what's going on, and then the urge to run away is something that so many people that have lived through these situations have expressed. And just hearing that so fresh from Miss Lewis, it's just stark to hear that. Also talked with people who were able to leave, who described barricading doors in their buildings. They weren't in the same building, but just hearing that information that there's a potential shooter on the loose, putting an office they go to work in every day, all of a sudden they're looking for objects, copiers, furniture they can put against doors to try to stay safe in that moment. There are several tragedies that have unfolded here tonight, but I would say that they're innumerable for the people who just happen to be in the vicinity of these extreme tragedies, trying to process what exactly unfolded here tonight. And as information continues to trickle out, some people have stuck around. They are wanting to know numbers, specific numbers and buildings and exactly what is going on here. And actually understand we do have a soundbite from Nikesha Lewis, who we just spoke to, Rachel, so we'll listen to that.
Out of nowhere, we hear what sounded like rapid gunfire. It was 2 shots at first, so I did look up and saw one of the walls of the building was already shattered, like popcorn or whatever. And I was like, wow, that's actually gunshot, because by then, as I'm realizing what's happening, there's rapid gunfire at this point.
That's Nikesha Lewis, who was having a meal outside the plaza, right outside the building. And it's just harrowing hearing what she went through and her urge to stick around and determination to find the people that she was with, coworkers that she was with. She mentioned seeing 3 different people being brought out of the building in semi-conscious or unconscious states before police moved her farther back, which she was in a group of an unsure number of people who were being ushered back farther and farther from the scene. And she fears that she's been separated from her friends farther and farther, but she does know they're okay. A small comfort in this just tragic situation.
Stephen, thank you for that report. Thank you for that interview and for bringing us that clip of your interview with Miss Lewis. I just have to ask, given the dramatic nature of what she told you and what she saw and the number of different elements of this that she says she was able to eyewitness. Have you seen the police or the authorities broadly in the area that have contained that scene? Have they been seeking witnesses to talk to or interviewing people about what they saw, what they may have experienced in the immediate vicinity of this crime?
Yeah, an excellent question. And not that I've seen. I did ask if police have talked to her since then, and they have not. But we are being kept very far back from the building, so it's possible people closer in that vicinity have been stopped and spoken to by officers before they moved farther out. But several of the people that we talked to as they were finally able to exit were not in that building, and they said that they had not been interviewed by police, at least at this point.
Okay. Stephen Romo for us at the scene, NBC correspondent Stephen Romo. I really appreciate that, your ability to speak with some of those people that were nearby and who saw what happened, and also for that really comprehensive report, Stephen. Thank you. I imagine we'll be back with you tonight as our coverage continues. All right. At this point, we are waiting for the press conference, which we are expecting again at 10 p.m. Eastern. Again, these things do have a way of shifting one direction or another in unfolding situations like this. We do have reports of several people who have been killed at this scene in Midtown Manhattan at 52nd and Park. It is a large office building. One of the entities that is headquartered at this office building is the Blackstone investment firm, but there's a number of entities that are based there. We're going to be looking into this as best we can over the course of the evening, but also waiting to hear from authorities in terms of what they're able to update the public and us about what's happening. They have released the name of the shooter, who they say is dead. He's a man from Las Vegas, Nevada. Our own reporter, Mark Santia, tells us that one of the leads they're following is a car with Nevada plates, which may be relevant given the shooter's reported origins in Las Vegas. But again, at this point, it's a very protean set of facts that we have. But we do know there has been a loss of life in this mass shooting. And again, in Midtown Manhattan on a busy, lovely summer day at the end of the afternoon. We're learning more over the course of this hour. We'll bring you more as we've got it. All right, we've got lots more to get to tonight. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the other side. The Democrats want to have any chance at retaking the U.S. Senate next year, which is an absolutely crucial task in terms of, I don't know, not only the Democratic Party's future prospects, but maybe the Republic's future prospects. If the Democrats want any chance at retaking the Senate, they will almost certainly need to win the Senate race in the great state of North Carolina. Now, that is a state where a Democrat hasn't won a Senate race since 2008, which is 17 years ago. And so because of that sort of uphill battle suggested by that track record, Democrats have been really hoping they could recruit a really good candidate, like a blockbuster heavyweight candidate for that race in particular. Like, let's say you could invent a North Carolina Democrat who has won like a half dozen statewide elections. Let's say you could invent a North Carolina Democrat who has won statewide elections multiple times, even when Donald Trump was winning North Carolina on the same ballot. Let's say you'd invent a North Carolina Democrat who is a household name in the state, who has never lost an election in the state, who has high favorability ratings even after decades in the spotlight in that state. You'd have to invent him, unless you were able to recruit Roy Cooper. And today, Democrats got that wish when former North Carolina governor and former North Carolina Attorney General Roy Cooper announced that he is, in fact, going to run for that Senate seat.
When you made me your Attorney General, I prosecuted criminals and took on scammers, big banks, and drug companies. When you made me your governor, we balanced the state budget every year and worked with Republicans to raise teacher pay, recruit thousands of better-paying jobs, and expand Medicaid to more than 650,000 working North Carolinians. But right now, our country's facing a moment as fragile as any I can remember. And the decisions we make in the next election will determine if we even have a middle class in America anymore. I never really wanted to go to Washington. I just wanted to serve the people of North Carolina right here where I've lived all my life. But these are not ordinary times.
These are not ordinary times. And if anybody knows just how not ordinary these times are, it may be Roy Cooper, because the other thing to know about Mr. Cooper and this new race he's about to run, to Democrats' delight, is that this man has been through some things, some things that qualify him perhaps uniquely for this moment in Washington. He has served in North Carolina. He has not served in Washington, but he brings an experience, a level of political experience to Washington if he wins this race, which is, again, perhaps uniquely suited to this moment. And that is because during Roy Cooper's 2 terms as governor in North Carolina, Republicans turned North Carolina into kind of their anti-democracy pilot project. In 2016, when Roy Cooper ousted the sitting Republican governor of North Carolina to win the State House for the first time, the very first thing Republicans in the legislature did was they started stripping powers from the governor's office. Oh, the governor's going to be a Democrat now? Well, then no more powers for the governor. Republicans basically said to North Carolina voters, sure, okay, maybe you can elect a Democrat, but if so, we will not allow that Democrat to wield the powers of this office. For all 8 years that Roy Cooper was governor, Republicans were particularly focused on not just taking away his powers broadly, which they were, but explicitly and specifically they wanted to take away any control he would have as governor over administering the state's elections. They wanted that power to be in Republican hands. They're still at it. Last year, when North Carolina voters elected another Democrat to succeed Roy Cooper as governor, the Republicans in the legislature passed a law that moved control of the state elections board from the governor's office to the state auditor's office. Why would you give control over elections to the state auditor? That's a job for a guy who, keeps tabs on the state's finances. Why would he be in charge of elections all of a sudden? Oh, they gave that guy the job of administering elections or overseeing elections because while Democrats won the other races, it was a Republican who won the state auditor's race. So suddenly it's the auditor's office that should control the state's elections. In case it wasn't exactly clear what they were doing, right? That said, what started in North Carolina has really been embraced as a model by Republicans in other states. North Carolina has essentially been a testing ground for Republicans in terms of small d Democratic disempowering of the opposite party. And Roy Cooper has been their prime target. When it comes to taking power and then seeking a sort of autocratic breakthrough, using the power of government to stay in power yourself and to deny the ability to govern to your political opponents, North Carolina is where we have most practically been experiencing that in recent years before the moment that we're in right now. Which means that if Roy Cooper, in fact, wins this Senate race in North Carolina, he's going to bring some highly relevant experience to Donald Trump's Washington from North Carolina. Joining us now for his very first TV interview since announcing his Senate run is the former governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper, Governor, it's really nice of you to be here tonight. I know this is a really busy day for you. Thank you for your time.
Well, thanks, Rachel. Glad to be with you. And I'm certainly thinking about the family and friends of the officer in New York. Terrible tragedy. But thank you for having me on.
You said in your announcement today that you never really wanted to go to Washington. You only ever wanted to serve the people of North Carolina, which you've done as Attorney General and as a 2-term governor in the state. But you said you were getting into this race because these are no ordinary times. What did you mean by that? What made you decide this is what you need to do right now?
There are so many bad things coming out of Washington that hurt the middle class and hurt people who are trying and dreaming of being in the middle class, seeing the health care stripped away from them, seeing tax breaks for the wealthy and a pittance for them. Time and time again, we are seeing Washington hurt everyday people, taking food out of the mouths of hungry children. I've thought that I need to make a difference at a time like this. I need to run for the United States Senate because I've been able to work with Republicans in North Carolina, and I have been able to try and stop them when they do bad things. We expanded health care to more than 670,000 North Carolinians. We were able to put a plan in place that helps address the high cost of living for North Carolinians by eliminating $4 billion in medical debt for 2 million North Carolinians. I want to take those problem-solving skills to Washington and make a difference for North Carolina. I love my state. I love my country. It was time for me to step up yet again, and I'm ready to do this.
You talked about that healthcare accomplishment. When you ask Democrats and I think political observers around the country about your political record, the sort of signature political achievement that people go to right away in talking about your record in North Carolina is that you did get health insurance for more than 600,000 people in your state who didn't have health insurance before, which is just a generationally life-saving thing for regular working families. Given that, I can't help but note that the reason this seat is open is because Republican U.S. Senator Thom Tillis opted not to run for re-election, and he did that right after he opposed Donald Trump's massive bill that will strip health insurance from potentially hundreds of thousands of people in your state who currently owe the health insurance they've got to you. I just have to ask you about that. What does it say to you that Thom Tillis couldn't support that bill from Donald Trump and that he couldn't stay in his Senate seat after he decided to oppose it?
It shows that what Republicans in Washington were saying is not true. And in fact, 500,000 to 1 million North Carolinians could lose their health insurance, not just with Medicaid expansion, but on the Affordable Care Act marketplace. You know, we built a coalition in North Carolina that allowed us to expand Medicaid and help rural counties. And I encourage people to go to roycooper.com and learn about what we did to expand Medicaid and try to learn about what we're going to do to move our state and our country forward. And we'd love to have you as a part of this campaign. But when I handed that Medicaid card to Penny on the first day of Medicaid expansion, I saw tears in her eyes, and we knew that we had accomplished something getting health insurance to people who had never had it before. Now, Washington Republicans are going to strip it away. And I think that is such a contrast in this race, because we know what Washington Republicans are doing to health care in this country. And we talk about lowering the cost of everyday working families who are holding their breath and waiting for that next car repair bill, worry about how are they going to pay for child care. They need health insurance. Every American needs health insurance. Here we gave it to more of them. They're going to take it away again. We're going to make sure that people of North Carolina know about this. And when I get to Washington, I'm going to do something about it. So many people in Washington just want to be something. I want to do something. And I believe that rural Americans are going to let their members of Congress and their senators have it once they find out that they're about to lose life-saving health insurance. We need to get that message out.
Former North Carolina governor, former North Carolina attorney general, now U.S. Senate candidate Roy Cooper. Thank you so much for your time tonight, talking to us as your first TV interview after announcing you'd be taking the Senate race. Democrats all over the country have been sort of wondering whether you're going to take this leap. It's a really big deal for the country that you are in this campaign. Thanks for joining us tonight to talk about it.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm ready to roll.
All right. All right, tonight, I got to tell you one thing that you may want to think about for this fall. MSNBC has just announced the date for our next big live event. Do you remember that we did this last year for the first time? We sort of tried it out. We thought, do people who watch MSNBC want to do a live event with all the MSNBC hosts? We didn't know if it would work at all. We did it in Brooklyn, New York last year, and it turns out it was this smashing success. And not only did people really like it who came in, attended it, but all of us at MSNBC who took part in it really enjoyed it too. It was very cool. We decided to do it again. So we're going to do another one of these this fall. It's a chance for MSNBC viewers to meet each other, for y'all to meet each other in real life, and to meet a whole bunch of us MSNBC hosts as well, including me. I'll be there. Also, Lawrence will be there, and Nicole, and Jen Psaki, and Chris Hayes, lots of us. It's a whole day-long event. We're giving you plenty of advanced notice. It's Saturday, October 11th. We're going to do it in New York City again, both because that's where our headquarters is, but that's also easy for everybody to get to, we think. Saturday, October 11th, the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. We're calling it MSNBC Live 25, as in 2025. This is who we are. Just announced it today. Tickets are on sale right now at msnbc.com/live25. Or if you want to, that little QR code that's there on your screen, you can just hold your phone up to that QR code right now and scan that, and it takes you right to the place where you can buy tickets. Tickets start, I think, at like $100. So again, not mandatory attendance, but everybody who went last year seemed to really dig it, and so did we. So we're doing it again. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We keep nuclear weapons underground in this country, in big, they call them silos. They are shaped like farm silos that hold grain, but instead of going up, they go down. And all over the northern plain states, we have these underground silos, these massive underground fortresses, which hold huge nuclear-armed intercontinental ballistic missiles in Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota. And a lot of them, especially the first ones that we built, are up in that northern tier of the country because they are a Cold War relic. And the idea was that you'd want them in the inland northern tier of the US, A, so you'd have plenty of time to see any incoming threat to those sites flying in from either coast, so you wanted them way inland. But B, you also wanted them way north, so you could fire those intercontinental ballistic missiles north over the Arctic Circle as the fastest path to go hit Moscow, right? To go hit Russia, or I guess the Soviet Union, since it was a Cold War thing. And there were some earlier missile silos with different kinds of weapons, but mostly what we think of when we think of those nuclear missile silos on the northern plains, mostly what we think of are the Minuteman sites for these huge 50-foot-long nuclear-armed intercontinental missiles, the Minuteman missiles. And those Minuteman missile sites in Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming, those started to go in the early to mid-1960s. And they are still there and still functioning today, because we as a country still have thousands of live nuclear weapons that we maintain in a constant state of readiness, because sure, why not? But if you're going to decide as a country to do that, one thing you can't then do is let those nuclear weapons and those nuclear weapons sites fall into disrepair, right? This isn't like old books or soccer balls that you stashed in a milk crate on a shelf in your garage and forgot about, and, you know, look, the mice got to them. Right? These are real live nuclear weapons that need upkeep and modernization. They need care and tending. So a few months ago, there was a review of the physical condition of these decades-old silos, where to this day we keep hundreds and hundreds of these huge nuclear weapons. And at the end of that review, the Air Force reported, we need to dig all new silos for our nuclear missiles. Turns out these silos we dug starting in the 1960s aren't going to last forever. They're leaking, they're crumbling, they're no place to keep live nuclear weapons and the crews that watch them and maintain them and stand ready to launch them 24 hours a day. So we need new silos. We need new physical sites for these ground-based nukes. And if that sounds expensive, you are right. But also, you've got to, right? I mean, maybe we shouldn't actually have these nuclear weapons. That's an argument that might be worth having. But if we're not having that argument and we are going to keep these nuclear missiles, all these thousands of them, right, then we do have to keep them safely. If we're going to have the nukes, we've got no choice but to maintain them and upgrade them as needed to keep them safe. Right. We can all agree on that, right? Right. Well, President Donald Trump is now robbing the ground-based nuclear missiles safety and modernization budget for himself. He is robbing that budget. Quote, no one wants to discuss a mysterious $934 million transfer of funds from the Pentagon project to modernize America's aging ground-based nuclear missiles. But that amount, $934 million, was slipped into an obscure Pentagon document sent to Capitol Hill as a transfer to an unnamed classified project. In recent weeks, congressional budget sleuths have come to think that that amount almost certainly includes the renovation of the new gold-adorned airplane from Qatar that President Trump desperately wants to be in the air before his term is over. Air Force officials privately acknowledge, quote, dipping into nuclear modernization funds for the airplane project. That's from reporters David Sanger and Eric Schmidt at the New York Times. And just to underscore that last point again, just in case that didn't sink in, they actually say it twice in the article. When asked last week, the Air Force said it simply could not discuss the cost or anything else about the airplane because it is classified. But Air Force officials privately concede that they are paying for the renovations of the Qatari Air Force One with the transfer from the Pentagon program to rebuild America's aging, leaky ground-launched nuclear missile system. So our aging, leaky, ground-launched nuclear missile system needs some attention, needs a little TLC, because, you know, they're huge armed nuclear missiles under the ground in Montana and Wyoming and all over the place in silos built for them, I don't know, 60 years ago. So they need a little TLC, our live nuclear weapons, but Trump is taking the money from that program for himself to instead fix up this plane that he wants, which, yes, he will use as Air Force One while he's president, but then, remember, he plans to keep it for himself after his presidency as part of his presidential library, which is a thing that does not exist. Diverting $934 million in taxpayer funds from the Pentagon for nuclear weapon safety to instead making sure he gets the gold inlay he knows he deserves on the plane he plans to take with him when he goes. Everywhere, all over the world, these guys are all the same, and they all want gold toilets. They all want to rob the country they lead blind, to give them gold gewgaws that make them feel special. But that's more fun than actually governing, right? On the actual governing front, while we're on the subject of planes, let's see, how's it going at the FAA? Well, last week, we just had word of the near miss in North Dakota when a commercial pilot with a plane full of passengers had to take emergency evasive action after a near midair collision with a B-52 bomber doing a flyover at the North Dakota State Fair. No warning, apparently, to the B-52 or the commercial aircraft. Then Friday, we've got another commercial pilot having to take another emergency evasive action with a plane full of passengers. He dropped the plane into what passengers said felt like a nosedive to avoid another potential midair collision about which those pilots had no warning except from the automated collision avoidance system that set off screaming alarms in the cockpit. Then on Saturday, we have 173 passengers and 6 crew members evacuating down the slide at Denver's airport as their aircraft catches fire. Today, we have Newark Airport, one of the 3 big airports in the New York City area, having to preemptively delay all of its traffic because Newark no longer has enough personnel to safely coordinate air traffic in and out of that huge, busy airport. It's almost like Trump inexplicably insisting on firing hundreds and hundreds of critical air safety personnel from the FAA for no reason several weeks into his new term in office. Maybe that wasn't a great idea. Running the federal government is hard. Governing is hard. Yeah, maybe instead of governing, just see what other gold stuff you can get me. Now Trump is embarking on a huge shadowy binge of spending on new prison camps. What we know already, what we can see already, following the money on that Trump spending binge is already pretty weird, by which I mean it's about what you would expect. The Richmond Times-Dispatch is now reporting on the contract the Trump administration has awarded to what they're claiming will be the largest immigration prison in the country, which they want to build on an Army base in Texas at Fort Bliss. The company that has been awarded the $1.2 billion contract to build that prison camp is a contractor that's been around since 2008. In that time, the largest contract it's ever received appears to be for $16 million. Doing the math, I believe that's less than 0.2% of the size of the $1.2 billion contract that company just got to build this huge 5,000-bed tent prison camp at Fort Bliss, Trump's biggest prison camp in Texas. They got a $1.2 billion contract, a company that's never built anything for more than $16 million before. I want to show you a visual here. This is the headquarters of that contractor. This suburban house in random suburban Virginia behind that big shade tree. That is the official corporate headquarters of the $1.2 billion contractor that Trump is using to build his biggest prison camp at an Army base in Texas. Little house behind the tree there. $1.2 billion contract. That seem at all fishy to you? I'm sure it's fine. Clearly, these guys know what they're doing. And you know they're sending their best all up and down the line. This is out of Arizona this weekend. Border agent charged with child sex trafficking and fraud in Cochise County. A Tucson Sector Border Patrol agent has been indicted on 24 felonies, including 10 counts of child sex trafficking. Also charged with 6 counts of pandering or encouraging someone to engage in prostitution, 1 count of attempted child sex trafficking, 2 counts of fraud, 5 drug-related felonies, and possession of drug-related paraphernalia. This is from the Arizona Daily Star, which notes that it's just the latest of several Customs and Border Patrol employees in that state who've been charged with or convicted of sexual misconduct and other crimes. Yeah, definitely we should be dumping billions of dollars into that very healthy, very ship-shape law enforcement operation right now. In light of Trump's efforts to get his former personal lawyer into a lifetime appointment as a federal judge, there are now not 1, not 2, but 3 federal whistleblowers who have come forward to tell the Justice Department's Inspector General and the Senate that Trump's personal lawyer, Emil Bove, has no business being anywhere near the federal judiciary. Federal judges in the Northern District of New York have rejected Trump's pick for interim U.S. attorney, the interim top federal prosecutor in that district. They said, no, he cannot continue in that role. You have to put in somebody else. Trump is nevertheless blowing off those judges and insisting on keeping that guy in as U.S. attorney, even though technically you might say he's been legally removed from the position. In New Jersey, federal judges said the same thing about another one of Trump's personal lawyers, who he has tried to install as the top federal prosecutor in that state. Federal judges in New Jersey removed Alina Habba from that job. Trump is nevertheless trying to keep her there. The judges named another prosecutor from that office to take Habba's place, but the Trump administration then fired that prosecutor to try to keep Alina Habba on the job, again, even though the judges there have basically legally removed her. Here's another one of my favorites, in part because he's one of these guys who has taken his job as an elected official as basically an opportunity to just be an online troll for Trump. The Oklahoma State Education Commissioner, who is a one of these Trump stands, I guess you'd call him. He's the superintendent of public education in the state of Oklahoma. He mandated that students in Oklahoma must be taught the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. He mandated that students had to watch a video of him praying for Donald Trump. He has championed book banning in Oklahoma, claimed that the American Library Association wants to force pornographic books on Oklahoma school children. He supported the banning of books like The Kite Runner from Oklahoma school libraries, claiming that that worldwide bestseller, celebrated all over the world, published in 42 languages, is also, in his view, pornography. On Thursday, the Oklahoma State Board of Education went into executive session in his office, and 2 of the other members of the State Board of Education said during that meeting they noticed that on the television behind him in his office was a video of naked women playing during the meeting. Nobody knows why the video of naked women was playing in his office during the Board of Education meeting. It's now being investigated by 2 state agencies and the Sheriff's Department in that county in Oklahoma. I'm just telling you, they're not sending their best. At this point, we are awaiting a press conference at the top of the hour, 10 p.m. Eastern. We are expecting law enforcement authorities in New York to lead a press conference on this breaking news story that we've been following over the course of the evening. At an office building in Midtown Manhattan at 52nd and Park Avenue, late this afternoon, early this evening, there was a mass shooting. A gunman entered the building, Multiple people were shot inside the building, including a New York police officer who apparently was working a paid detail in uniform at the lobby of that building. There are conflicting reports about the number of people who were killed or injured by the gunmen inside that building, but shooting apparently happened on multiple floors of that office building. The gunman himself also died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He's been identified as a 27-year-old man named Shane Devin Tamura, T-A-M-U-R-A, a resident of Las Vegas, Nevada, according to authorities. The gunman entered at the street level carrying what appeared to be an assault-style weapon. He made it all the way to the 31st floor where one of his victims was shot. The shooter's body was found on the 33rd floor, but again, police are saying that he shot himself. That was the cause of his death. Police are currently, of course, investigating what may have been the shooter's motive. They're reportedly exploring a number of different theories based on the shooter's prior expressed interests. Police in New York City's mayor are expected to hold a press conference, again, momentarily at 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight. When there are ongoing investigations like this and rapidly developing stories, these things can sometimes shift in the time frame, but we're keeping an eye on these developments as they continue to unfold. Our continuing coverage of this breaking story will continue tonight here on MSNBC during this press conference and thereafter.